Welcome to How We Heard It, the podcast about music, pop culture, movies, and more, with your hosts Wayne Bledsoe and Chuck Campbell.
Hello, everybody. This is Chuck Campbell with
Wayne Bledsoe, and
I'm John Baker.
And we've been a few days now without Dolly Parton walking this earth, and it's a strange feeling. We're kind of doing this one earlier than we normally do in our rotation just so we can get it out there while she's still fresh on everyone's mind. So I don't think she's going to be out of anyone's mind anytime soon. How are you guys feeling about it?
Well,
it's the wrong people are dying.
Well, with me, I mean, it's, she's the person that my friends and I have talked about, what's going to happen when she goes.
Yeah. Well, we used to have to do that at the paper. We used to have to do obits for older sports celebrities, celebrities and all that. And nobody wanted to do the Dolly Parton obit because you just don't want to even think about that. And I'm sure they eventually got around to it, but it was just we had a list of people that we needed, who were getting older, of people we needed to have obits in the ready because papers have to pop something out as soon as someone dies, and then they go back and they add the details. Right. This list, other names are being checked off, and just nobody was doing Dolly for years. Just couldn't think about it.
Yeah, and I think that's the way it's been for kind of all of us. I mean, Dolly Parton is, as everybody has said, and we've always known, she's kind of the only unifying human being on the planet.
Right.
I mean, I don't care what your political bent is. Most people like Dolly Parton. Right. They respect her. And, she's done so much to bring people together and to help people. And
diverse people.
And I mean, even if I'm sure there are people who disagree with some of the things that she did and some of the things she stood for and some people she stood up for. Mm-hmm. But boy, she demanded your respect.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, she was everything I wanted her to be.
Right. Right. That's something, we've seen thousands and probably millions of tributes at this point to Dolly on social media. A lot of time, a lot of them are the, big heavy hitters from her day. So you had Cher and Paul McCartney and Elton John and then the younger artists and then anyone who's ever worked with her on a movie and then just people who knew her and, of course, everybody in country music and just fans and people who may have seen her in a parade one day and just people who never met her at all. Yeah. But she had a profound impact on their life. Yeah. And to just a little clarification here that, we are based in Knoxville, Tennessee. That's where we're coming to you from, which is the first big city closest to Dolly's. She's from what?
Sevierville.
Yeah, Sevierville, but just like 20 minutes down the road from here. Yeah. And we're all from here. So she was larger than life here, and I didn't realize as a kid, but she was larger than life everywhere. Yeah. And you came to realize, that's not just someone from here. Yeah. That's like someone everybody knows.
Well, I'm old enough. I mean, I remember from the Porter Wagner show, and I'm sure I saw her on the Kaz Walker show because she was on that when I was a little kid, and we watched the Kaz Walker show every morning. I don't remember her specifically being on that.
Right.
But for those of us in East Tennessee, it seems like there's always been a Dolly Parton.
Always. Well, always.
Yeah.
And I just think we just never thought about her coming to an end, I mean.
No. But it's like you just said, for people, it's all over the world.
Yeah.
Because she is somebody that, she spoke up for marginalized people.
Right.
And there are people that feel that all over.
Right. Well, her background, she was poor, like very poor from Appalachia.
And people don't realize how poor she was.
They were very poor. So she was already speaking for the marginalized people who were poor. Yeah. And, how life treats them and the government and everything and how hard it is for them to begin with.
Yeah. And
so she was already, an ally to people who didn't know anything about her yet.
She just had an amazing capacity for empathy.
Yeah.
And that's the exact opposite of other people who have no empathy.
Right.
Yeah.
And don't even understand it.
Right.
Yeah. But a lot of people now, I don't know that, we grew up with the stereotype hanging over our head of hillbillies.
Right.
Since at least the turn of the century when the New York Times, the turn of the 20th century, the beginning of the 20th century, when the New York Times was writing about hillbillies and painting them as ignorant and lazy and all this other stuff, which was not true. People from the mountains were very resourceful and had to be very intelligent to figure out how to do the things that they wanted to do and get the things they wanted to get. She became sort of an icon of being from this region.
Yep. She didn't run away from it either.
No, she embraced it, and she joked about it, but, I mean, she succeeded like nobody's business. And the big thing, I mean, I wrote something on Facebook right after she died, and the big thing that I wanted people to know, and the thing that people would always ask me, you know, about what it was like to interview her, and it's like, and I don't know if you picked up it the same way I did, but, I mean, she's one of the smartest people I ever talked to.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely. She is in the moment. It's like when you make eye contact with her, she's like reading your mind and telling. It's like she's talking to you. You know, when you're. It was like unsettling almost, because I tend to ramble and get off subject and everything. I realized I was talking to her about just something, and it wasn't even like for a story or anything, and it was just small talking. And I kind of looked over at her, and she just smiled, and her eyes were like, I was like, oh. You just kind of close up. It's like, oh my God, I'm wasting her time.
Well, the way I always described it is like, you know, you can almost see the cogs turning in her brain that you didn't have.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of the signs of intelligence is being able to hold, you know, different thoughts and concepts in your mind at the same time. I think she had about 20 going on all the time.
I know.
And I mean, she never acted like I'm smarter than you.
Never. Nope.
She never, like, you know, put it out there how smart she was. But if you were perceptive, you could always tell when people are smarter than you. But man, she was smarter than everybody.
Yeah.
And I don't care. I mean, it's always the people who talk about how smart they are that are stupid.
Right. Right.
And, you know, the older you get, the more you realize that. Somebody tells you they know everything about some subject or everything about everything. They don't know anything. You're not going to learn much from them. But somebody like Dolly Parton, she was using that intelligence all the time.
Right.
People talk about what a good businesswoman she was and all those things. It's like, it wasn't because she was just a good businesswoman. It was because she was that smart.
Right. She could, like, read everybody's mind, you know?
It's that empathy.
Yeah.
It's empathy and it's intuitiveness. And I think that's one of the things that, I mean, when people are smart and intuitive, you know, I mean, you don't always get a Dolly, but you get somebody that is really special.
Right. That when we were in a room of like 7 people, I was sitting next to her, and she was talking about history here, and realized it was just kind of going over people's heads because they didn't understand. She said, "Is anyone in this room from here?" And I said, "I am." And I was sitting right next to her, so she just turned and we just talked directly about, you know, she knew me, like that's all it took. She knew me. She knew I was from here, and our conversation shifted. It was just the two of us in this room, but everybody else in that room got their attention from her too. It's not like she was ignoring anybody, but she's like, "Okay, I know this about you now, and let's build on that." And it was just conversation. She was such a conversationalist, you know. But I got to say, you were talking about Appalachia and everything. I got to say, it was a little different for me. I was first generation East Tennessee, so my family doesn't have Appalachia roots. And I've got family in Florida and Georgia and South Carolina and Texas, California, New York, Michigan, Ohio. And I was the second person in my sister, middle sister that I've talked about much. Yeah. She was the first one in my family, extended family, born in Tennessee, East Tennessee. And so I was the second. My first sister, you know, her first days were in Wyoming. That's where my dad was based, and he was in the Air Force. That's how we ended up here. Now, I've always identified as Southern, but I haven't identified so much as Appalachian because that's not really my history or culture. But Southern certainly is. But I was a little slow adapting to that because I felt like I was on the record for the whole family of speaking for Tennessee and East Tennessee. And I wasn't sure how I felt about it. And I had insecurities because I was a newbie to not a newbie to Tennessee, but, and my first impression, we didn't listen to country music. I knew of Dolly Parton. I knew she was from here. I knew that she had gone to Nashville. I didn't see Porter Wagner or anything like that. And there was a friend. My dad was in the Air Force, and there was another officer in the Air Force, and I was friends with other officers' kids. And one of them told me that his mother said, and his mother was, I think, Eastern European, but his mother told him that Dolly Parton had some kind of plastic surgery that went really wrong, and that she looks like a freak now, and that she feels sorry for her. And I was a child, and so was this other guy. So, and he was talking about her chest, right?
Right.
And so he told me that, and I was like, wow, I didn't know this. So my first thought was, I feel sorry for her now. And I told my dad, eventually I told him, I said, so, Dolly Parton had some kind of plastic surgery and it went wrong. And he said something like, well, if that's wrong, I'd love to see right, I was like, oh. And it's like, oh, it's just this woman's insecurities about Dolly or whatever. Yeah. But at the time Dolly was becoming popular, you had Hee Haw was out there, which was Tennessee in general and country music. And you had the Beverly Hillbillies.
Yeah.
And they all three kind of overlapped, Hee Haw and Beverly Hillbillies and Dolly. And I thought, I didn't know how to embrace that because I didn't really want to embrace that. Yeah. I didn't like Hee Haw. And Beverly Hillbillies, I know they were the heroes of the show, but you had Granny making lye soap by the cement pond. And it's just, so my first was kind of resistance to Dolly. But then I started, as I got older, she started having pop hits and of course, Jolene. I knew of Jolene, and I knew that was a great song. And then I saw her in the movies, and I saw her interacting with Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda, and just all these other actors. And I would see her on the talk shows like, this woman's amazing, But again, it wasn't just like right off the bat, she represents me because I thought she had bad surgery.
Oh, Lord.
And it was,
Well, see, with me, it's the opposite. I mean, my family's been here since the 1700s.
Right.
And I was the first person, my older sister was the first person in our family that was born in a hospital. Everybody else was born in a home. Wow. My mother, grew up for a long time without indoor plumbing and, it's like they were really from the hills.
Right.
And, as you're a kid, you're a little embarrassed by that. You kind of want to be, you think you're cosmopolitan, whatever. And then you reach a point where you embrace it.
Yeah.
And, Dolly and things like the Museum of Appalachia, which really showed what Appalachian people were like.
Yeah.
They helped change that. And the first time I interviewed her, I was 24.
Oh, wow.
And was doing a week-long series on the history of country music in East Tennessee. That's when I was still a copy clerk. I wasn't even hired as a writer then.
Wow. Yeah.
And I got her on the phone, and I was having a great interview. And when I got off, I realized it hadn't taped.
Oh,
her side had not taped.
Oh, you were a young man then. That must have been just like
it. From there on out, I took notes. The whole time I was recording the interview because I had to listen. All I had on the interview were my questions.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So I had to go back and try to remember everything. And I've always prayed that she either, and I know she read it because she was interested in what I was going to write. But, I'm sure I screwed up quotes right and left, but it didn't keep her from talking to me later.
Right.
And, she was so sweet and she was so funny.
Yeah.
But, most of the times I talked to her over the phone. There was a few times, like when you were talking, that I talked to her. But the one time that I went to Dollywood and she was promoting the show that her family had, there was going to be in, and we sat in the Dollywood offices and we talked about the show for 10 minutes. She goes, well, you got an hour. Now you can ask me anything you want. So, and she knew, I'm sure she read our stuff about her because
we were the most important market for her starting out.
It's her hometown newspaper.
Her family all lives here.
And her family are going to say things. And I wrote a negative review of one of our albums one time, and I always thought, oh my gosh, I hope they didn't show that one to her. But we talked for an hour about songwriting.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, she could tell how interested I was and how much I respected her as a songwriter. And it was wonderful. Yeah. She was just great. And any question I asked, she, answered it so thoughtfully.
Yeah.
And I really did learn a lot about her process. And she fasted.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she would go to her cabin, and she had her cabin reconstructed that she grew up in, and spend a week and consume nothing but water.
Gosh.
And she said, she needed it to kind of feel spiritually and
start to say that clearer,
creatively cleansed.
Yeah.
And I said, well, gosh, I've never fasted. And she goes, don't do it. It's awful. But, and then afterwards, of course, all the Dollywood people told me, she never takes an hour with anybody.
Right.
So, I felt really special. But it's funny because people, when we talk about interviewing people, they think, and you write about it, oh, you were friends. It's like, it's not that. It was professional.
No, yeah.
But you did feel like you got a connection for however long that was.
We've all seen a lot of celebrity deaths, and I'm not emotionless or anything like that, and some of them have made me sad. But this one really put me into mourning, and it was like you and I were talking about before this. It's like we've lost a family or family member or true friend or whatever, and we weren't that close to her, she would probably remember your name. I doubt she would even remember my name.
I think she probably would. I think she remembered everybody.
She might. But, it's just felt like a different kind of death, And part of it has been, I did start reading the tributes, and it was just person after person from all ages and races and orientations and countries and walks of life. And they all kept circling back to that, talk about how wonderful she was as an artist, and she was an extraordinary artist. She really was. She had 3,000 songs. Diane Warren, I saw an interview with her. She said she wrote her songs, and nothing would make her madder than people think some men had written her songs for. Is like that was Dolly Parton who wrote those songs, And you would hear about her professionalism and how this song and that song affected them, but everybody always tried to circle from that to talk about what kind of person she was. And they were all describing her in the same kind of way, but it was sort of this elusive thing because she was just such a extraordinary human. And I don't know where I was going with that. I knew I should have written down exactly what to say.
Well, one that I watched yesterday was some guy. I don't even know who it was. He just said, well, I'm a songwriter, and at some point I had a chance to go meet Dolly, and I stood in line and waited my turn, and when I got there and I said, hey, Dolly, it's nice to meet you. I'm a big fan, and I'm a songwriter. And she immediately asked him about his songs, and is there any way I can hear some of your songs? And he said, well, yeah, I brought a tape. And he said, and then I walked away and thought, she's just going to throw that away.
Yeah.
Well, it was in the 90s.
Right.
And he said, she's probably not going to ever get around to it, but her publishing company called him or texted him and gave him recommendations on different people to give the tape to.
Wow.
And he said she suggested I join the Nashville Songwriters Association, and that helped me. And then I moved to Nashville. She recommended that, and it's just changed. She just changed my life, and I was nobody.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the things, that we all talk about, like you're talking about, what kind of a person she was and how, what a humanitarian she was and everything. But it comes down to that's what she wanted to be when she started out. She wanted to write songs. I mean, her first song she wrote when she was 5 years old.
Wow. About
one of her dolls called Little Tassel Top. And it's like, and I was interviewed by somebody early this morning, and I was saying, the thing about Dolly is she learned the craft. By the time you got to hearing these great songs, she'd been working at it for, her whole life up to that point. And it's like a Paul Simon or an Elton John or somebody like that. They write a lot of junk before they get to that stuff. We'll never hear the stuff that she wrote before she started putting it out. But then she became like a master. Jolene and Coat 'Em in Colors and I Will Always Love You and Light of a Clear Blue Morning. I really seriously think 300 years from now, people will be singing those songs.
Yeah.
Because, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I listened to the Dolly Parton's America podcast a couple of years ago, I think.
Yeah.
But just in light of this, I started it again this morning. And in this first episode, they're talking to this British musicologist, and she said, you can break Dolly's songwriting down into like 3 sort of different periods. The first one are she calls them her sad ass songs, and she said they're ballads, and they go into a wormhole about Knoxville Girl, and that murder ballads are just a tradition that goes back to, they trace Knoxville Girl back to 1600 something, and that's what she was brought up singing. I mean, that's just what you heard in the Appalachian Mountains. That's what we sang on the front porch. And so the first stuff are like men doing horrible things to women. And she always took the perspective of the woman who had been done wrong. I mean, like she said, I was never pregnant. I never had a child, but I wrote a song about a baby being stillborn.
Down from Dover.
Yeah.
Which Marianne Faithfull recorded. And when I interviewed Marianne Faithfull, she told me how Dolly had written her a thank you letter for recording that song. And I mean, Marianne Faithfull wasn't selling that many records. Dolly wasn't going to make, a big bunch of money. But that just showed you, I mean, she was talking about what a sweet, wonderful person Dolly Parton was. I mean, she took the time out to write a thank you letter for somebody recording one of her songs.
She wrote letters, and they were posted. All kinds of celebrities were posting, and it had the same
Eminem.
Yeah, well, I want to tell a story about Eminem. So that I talked to her in 2023.
Yeah,
and it was before Dolly would open. I was supposed to go up 2020. Oh, that's a whole other story. But 2020, it was March of 2020.
Right.
Okay, and they said she was going to be there. I said, "Are you sure that she's going to be here? We got this pandemic." And they're like, "Yeah, as far as we know, she's going to be there." And we got up there, and the team, the reporter, and me, and the photographer, and we're like, "Oh, is she really going to do this?" And I was like, "She's kind of older too, and and we don't know." And they came out and they said, "We can't. She's just down the hall." But the doctor said said, we can't be meeting people right now, and they closed Dollywood too, where they didn't open or something. But so then 2021 she didn't do it. So it's 2022. It was 2022. When I got to sit down with her, and this, was it. But and she had been nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and Eminem was also nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I said, "What do you think of that?" And first, she was extremely humble. She said, "I shouldn't be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame," And she said, I shouldn't be in there because I don't do rock and roll. I said, "You've had a lot of rock and rollers." And this is like with everyone sitting around, but we were just like talking, and they were just whatever. And I said, a lot of people have covered your songs, and you've done so much other stuff. And it's not strictly for rock and rollers, traditional rock and rollers. They've expanded it. And she goes, "Oh, I don't know." She said, "I feel like I need to do a rock and roll album before I get in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame." And I said, so I said, "Well, Eminem's nominated too. And I really want to see you and Eminem perform together." So that would be amazing to see the two of you on stage together. She goes, "Oh, I just love him." And she said, "But he shouldn't be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame either." She said, "He's a rapper, But I said, "Well, anyway." Then I saw Eminem. It's one of the first reactions I saw. Eminem posted a letter that she sent to him after the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And she said she was disappointed that she wasn't on stage with him, and that but she really admired him. She's long admired him, even though she doesn't know that much about rap. And it was just so weird because then Eminem got into that. She was just an extraordinary person. And this is Eminem, who's like been so inflammatory to so many people, and just talking about, he did the same thing that everyone else did, just pivoted. I don't know how to explain how this woman was so different, but she was,
And to that same tangential story, the one I just saw before I came up here was Rob Halford, the singer of Judas Priest, who they were being put into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he's talking about, he's talking in the camera, he's all bearded and got a nose ring and everything, and he's like, we'd been out there rehearsing, and we were standing around in our shorts and T-shirts, and she walks out there, and she's like a sparkly star. I mean, she's just like, and she smells great, and she's so nice. And I just couldn't believe it. And then she came up and asked me if I knew Jolene, and I said, "Well, I know some of it." And she said, "Well, what will you play it? Will you sing it with me?" And so there's a picture of Rob Halford and Dolly Parton singing together.
Face to face,
my gosh.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
and he waxes into that whole thing about she's just amazing. She's just otherworldly kind.
Yeah.
Well, but having that and having that artistic strength too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, is like, I hope people remember what a humanitarian, what a great person she was, as long as they remember her music. I mean,
I think they will. Yeah. Just seeing the reactions, I think they will, because everybody, normally a lot of artists have bad reputation. There's some artists, I think, when they pass, are going to people say, well, I didn't like this or that about them, blah, blah, blah. And I think I saw one thing, and it was Rick Schroeder, neoconservative, whatever, saying, I didn't agree with her stance on, trans rights or something like that. But, she was a wonderful person, blah, blah, blah. And she got roasted for even having that little disclaimer about, well, I don't agree with her on trans rights. He got roasted for that, even though everything else he said was positive. And I just looked for people to say negative things. Like on day 2 of this thing, I thought people were going to say, when are we going to stop talking about Dolly Parton? And I didn't see it. Yeah. And they just flowed in. All the little gals that I've written about and everything, every single one of them had a tribute to her, of course. And all the older musicians, and like I say, it was just everybody, anybody who's ever acted with her. You've got Cher, you've got Paul McCartney, you've got Elton John. They're all just saying these amazing things. All the women that she was in movies with, and Julia Roberts and Sally Field, it just kind of struck me that, and I hate to compare her to anybody because it was a different time, but it reminded me sort of when Princess Diana died. And everybody was like, oh, God, that's just tragic. Because everybody loved her. You couldn't say anything bad about her. Yeah. We didn't have social media back then and everything. But I can't think of anyone else who's even come close to this kind of universal outpouring. And probably more than Princess Diana. Because she was in royalty, of course. But people loved her because she was, a humanitarian and everything. I just can't think of anyone else that just gets this unanimous thumbs up, and I don't know if we'll ever have it again.
I don't either. I mean, I saw one thing that was kind of negative, and I mean, my feeling about it is, what would Dolly have done? Right. She would have just ignored it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, to me, it's like we were talking about mourning. It's like when somebody in your family or friends dies, you need to get together and talk about them. Mm-hmm. You need to have that, decompressing. You need to have that, tribute of talking about them and talking about what was funny about them and, telling stories and things like that. And that's what I feel like we're doing here. Yeah. I think that's happening all over the world.
Yeah.
And I just think it's important for us to do that. And then at the end of it, take what lessons we learned from her.
Yeah. Well, that's how I feel exactly, because I've gotten into this, like, it's more heartening now to me. Like her passing wasn't a complete surprise because there's been hints of, there's something wrong here. Yeah. But we never knew it was this serious. And I think she had just done a video last week, about it not being able to come to East Tennessee. I think it was Dollywood maybe, but, and just like, my doctor said I shouldn't be traveling right now, but I'm going to keep, and it just sounded like, she's struggling with something, and then she was gone. Yeah. But, I think now just all the positivity and all the people trying to express the same feelings and the same or more or less the same feelings, you start realizing that this was just so much more universal than you ever thought. And we were kind of a little bit blinded to it because we are here in her hometown. So it always seemed like, well, maybe she's just bigger here. And then you start realizing, no, other people like her too. Other people really like her. And oh my God, everybody loves her, kind of a thing,
Well, a friend of mine that was a regular listener to my radio shows, and we became friends through email and just and stuff like that. But he sent me a video of the band at Buckingham Palace playing 9 to 5.
Yeah, yep, I saw that. Yep, and it was with a royal family statement, about how King Charles, had like a really moving. He addressed it too, and it's just like, and of course you had, even Trump and Barack Obama and and you had just all these people who are just diametrically opposed to each other, just saying, wow, this was like a incredible woman. Not that platitudes, anybody who's successful, they're going to get a certain level of, they were a great blah, 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 or a great blah, 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 but just kind of like everybody kind of feeling it in their heart, but it's bittersweet because you see who she was and how she affected everybody else. So it wasn't just you feeling, in your feels about Dolly Parton. It's kind of like, we get it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of a worldwide collective wake.
Yeah.
And I think, like I said, I mean, that's really, really important. And I think the thing that you take out of, I mean, it makes us all talk about all the aspects of her. I mean, you think about, what she did for women. Right off the bat. I mean, somebody that was that strong, stood up. I mean, who knows what kind of stuff she had to put up with in the late 60s.
And looking the way she looked, too. I mean, being, like...
And people thought she was a joke, and then she turned it right around.
Yeah. And she made the first jokes about herself.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
just disarmed everybody.
Well, it's one of the ones I quoted, because she wrote the song Dumb Blonde, and, she was blonde, and people were asking her, well, are you a dumb blonde? She goes, well, first thing is, I know I'm not blonde, and I know I'm not dumb. It doesn't bother me.
I think one of the worst call-outs, and people have seen this before, but is Barbara Walters saying, why do you look like that? You don't have to look like that. And she, and I thought, you should ask Barbara Walters as well as everyone from Boston is rude and cold. But she didn't. She just accepted the question. She goes, I do choose to look like this, and this is how I want to look. And
she said, I would never stoop so low as to be fashionable.
Yeah. She just always pulled out a great quote, even when someone was kind of being a little antagonistic with her or whatever. And I just keep thinking of these things. I want to say, I'll say this now, is that she just made herself non-political. She was very much a humanitarian.
Right.
She certainly supported women. You saw one of the big outpourings that I saw in the social media and everything were so many people of color saying she was one of us too. Yeah. We didn't hang the, white guilt on her because she was one of us. And we really, and of course the LGBTQ, because of her on and on, love and just saying, you are who you are. God loves everybody and I love everybody.
And she was saying that in the 70s.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was for somebody in country music, that was a dangerous thing for them to do.
Yeah.
Well, and you mentioned, all the things that she did for women, and I started this thought and got derailed talking about Knoxville Girl, but this English musicologist was saying that her songwriting developed alongside the women's cause, because the early ones were innocent young women who were treated badly by men, but then in that middle period, she's starting to hit back against that, and with songs like "You Ain't Worth the Salt in My Tears," and talking about and then the last one is like women just do for themselves. You don't even need a man.
I mean, her casting in 9 to 5 was real crafty and smart, you know, because you had Jane Fonda. Okay, of course she's going to be a feminist. You had Lily Tomlin. Of course she's going to be a feminist. And then you had Dolly Parton, who was playing, kind of a sex object, who was being treated probably most unfair of everyone, because everyone thought she was having an affair with the boss and all that stuff. But it's just so inspired to use her, and she was one of the, the threesome of probably the strongest one of the three of them.
And she's the one that you would look at and say, oh, she's going to be the bimbo.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what they thought she was in the movie. Right. And then over time, it's like, wow, she's got a gun in her purse, and she's going to turn him from a rooster to a hen with one shot.
Well, somebody said that was the meanest they ever saw her, was in that when she was talking to Dabney Coleman.
I would, there's a couple of movie scenes maybe. I think that the most tension I would see from her, when it wasn't really directed at any one person, but it was in the whole God loving everything. And it was her, as, she certainly a Christian herself and brought up in the Christian church and firm believer and all that stuff. But was her call out to other Christians who judged people. Yeah. And she would say it, I saw it over and over, and she would just have a little bit of a growl in her voice. Who are you to judge anybody?
Exactly.
You aren't here to judge anybody. You're here to love everybody. And I saw that quote of hers, not printed, but I saw her saying that over and over. And it's like, she must really feel strongly about this, because she tries to kind of dance around having to be pinned down to any political thing.
Well, that was the thing that I think really stands out. I'm agnostic, but I went to church, read the Bible, and it's like, she's a person who actually lived it.
Exactly. Exactly.
And it's, everybody wants to go back to Old Testament and, stuff that Paul said. Dolly goes back to what Jesus said.
Right.
And she stood up for it. And, if anybody ever lived what he said to live, it's Dolly.
Right.
And I mean, even about wealth. I mean, she could have easily been a billionaire.
Easily.
She had so much money.
Yeah, easily.
And she gave away, I mean, she gave it away in handfuls to causes that she believed in.
Yeah.
And I mean, we can look around East Tennessee and see how much better it made people.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just giving kids a book every month and encouraging them to read.
Hundreds of thousands of books. Or is it millions?
It's millions.
It's millions of books. That's
all
right.
over the world.
All over the world. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's...
And she said, I saw a quote today, she said, I think this is probably the most important thing I've done in my life.
Her father was illiterate, and going back to the being poor and the Appalachia, stereotypes and all that stuff, that was important to her on a personal level because, people here are tough and smarter, but they're not necessarily as educated, or at least back then they weren't as educated maybe as other people. That didn't make them inferior in any way,
And it was like, I mean, she did things on a large basis and on a small basis. I mean, all these millions she gave, all the millions she gave to the COVID vaccine, to help get the COVID vaccine to be developed.
She gave $1 million to Vanderbilt.
Yeah, and children's hospitals and,
which now the Children's Hospital here is Dolly Parton, it's been named for her.
And the foundation that she started that was named for the doctor who delivered her and, took a sack of cornmeal as payment.
Yeah.
I mean, that is giving medical services to everybody all over Sevier County who can't afford it.
Yeah. And you can go on and look at what she's done for so many other people. Like I
After
said,
the wildfires in the Smoky Mountains.
Wildfires in the Smoky Mountains. Yeah, she was writing checks, monthly checks to everybody affected by the fires.
And sometimes personally showing up.
Yes.
To give it to them.
Yes. And she did it for, I don't know how long went on and on. She just kept sending checks to everybody.
More than a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it saved it saved their homes. I mean, they were able to rebuild because of the seed money she gave them. There was at least one family that she just rebuilt their home.
Yeah.
I mean, but it was all those big things. But then when we had a memorial service for our friend Terry Morrow, and I don't know if you were the worst person who got that going or not, but she recorded a little tribute.
Yeah. So Terry Morrow was an entertainment writer in Sevierville. We hired him from Sevierville, and he was one of Dolly's go-to people because he went way back to the beginning of Dollywood and all that stuff. And so he had and of course he loved her, and he very territorial about her, but he would, and he wasn't. The people at Dollywood and the Dolly's handlers are just the nicest people. They seem to legitimately love their jobs, and they're just caring. I don't know. She puts them through some psychological battery or whatever.
But it's a culture that is different than other places.
It's a very different culture, and they've always been the kindest people that you could hope for. And I know they had to put up a lot with Terry because, when they had meet and greets, and several people would come to talk to Dolly, he would do everything he could to get priority and get other people excluded if he could, and all that stuff. Oh, yeah. But then when we asked her about Terry Morrow, she got teared up and she started talking about how lovely he was and how close she was to him, and it was true. And he was not easy to get along with.
But, I don't know if you remember in the little memorial she did, she said, he didn't always write nice things about me.
But she just accepted that. That's okay,
Yeah, but I mean, I just thought to take the time out for something like that, as busy as she is, and who knows how many people she's done that for.
I know. Well, and that's something, and we know this stuff, but when I was seeing the people of color were making their assertions for how she was one of them, and they would go to these same things. They were talking about the Dixie Stampede, which was a dinner theater here that she owned, and she dropped the word Dixie from it, and it was kind of a, people in South, they call Dixie Dixie and all that stuff. White people in the South do, and they don't, it's not necessarily meant with any harm or anything, but it's harmful to other people. Right. Certainly the people of color.
It's like the Confederate flag.
Of course, right, and the Confederate flag and all that stuff. And Dolly said, she never said anything in any kind of political statement way. She just talked off the top of her head, so it wouldn't sound like, like a woke statement. But when she was talking about the Dixie Stampede, she said, well, I didn't think anything of it. She said, but then you realize people it hurt people, and people were hurting from it.
Yeah.
And when I found that out, we just changed it. You have to do something. You can't just hurt people. You got to do something about it. And so that, boom, Dixie was gone. It's just the Stampede now. And same thing with, she talks about the Whitney Houston thing. She didn't try to get publicity for it.
No.
But, she made $10 million, I think, in royalties from Whitney Houston singing I Will Always Love You,
and continues
her
to.
song.
I mean,
Yeah. And she said that when it was Whitney Houston, of course, a black artist,
right.
and that she was looking around in Nashville, and she went into the black majority areas of Knoxville, and she said, "These are my people." What am I saying?
You said Knoxville.
Oh, I'm sorry. Nashville. Okay, this is what she. But she opened her office and just developed this whole retail center and everything in a black majority part of Nashville, and she called it the Whitney. Something, I don't know, some tribute to Whitney, because that's where she thought she would be, and that's where she thought she would fit in. And then the same thing, Black Lives Matter. They asked her, what do you think? Do Black Lives Matter? And she's just like, of course Black Lives Matter. Again, this wasn't a written out statement. This was Dolly talking off the top of her head. But she said, who are white people to think our little asses are the only ones that matter? Yeah. She said, of course Black Lives Matter. Like, she was offended that anyone would even ask a question like that anyone would ever doubt that. And it's like, it's just so refreshingly real and authentic, just kind of this natural, humanitarian woman, not all wound up and avoiding talking about things.
And it's interesting because, I tend to be angrier about things. I think, I think we all do, than she was. Yeah. When people are being ugly, as I'm sure she would have used that term at some point. But she had enough power, and enough people just loved her for what she was, that she made more of a difference probably by that sweetness.
Yes, exactly.
Than getting in somebody's face. I think that the way she dealt with it would make people who were racist or homophobic or, all these other things maybe think, well, if she can be this way about this, maybe I ought to consider it.
Yeah. I would think that, people, anti-LGBT people, for whatever reason, and they hear her talking so lovingly about these other people, and how people should just be who they are, and you should love everybody. You get that branded to you, but it's not a finger wagging in your face. Yeah. It's not like a fired up. And I feel bad, but I feel like that she's from another time, and we're not letting people be that way anymore.
And we're not letting people change, and that's one of the things.
We're not letting people change. One mistake, you're done from any side.
And that is the thing on the left that is a real problem.
Yeah.
If Dolly changed back in the 70s or whatever, if she'd said one wrong thing, there wouldn't be the kind of Dolly maybe there is now.
Right. Like the Dixie Stampede thing. It probably would have just instantly got her marked canceled forever.
Yeah.
And she's like, everyone said Dixie back then, there were women named Dixie and dogs named Dixie and cats named Dixie, and
she called it innocent ignorance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you define that, you change it.
And as soon as you hear how it sounds to other people, it's like, oh my God, I'm never going to say that again. We all learn.
And that's the thing, is we have to, what she did is give grace to people to change.
Yeah. We're not doing that now.
No.
We're demanding. I know there have been a lot of artists, especially young women artists and everything, that people start suspecting they might be MAGA because they've not been political. Right. That kind of went with Taylor Swift. People started thinking, oh, she's just a right-wing MAGA and everything. And she was just trying to avoid it. And then finally it's just like, okay, I'm a Democrat or whatever. And we're just not letting people not be. And I understand how things are important, and a lot of things are important. You want to know where people stand on issues and all that. Yeah. But at the same time, I think it just makes us all feel better if there's someone safe like Dolly Parton that we can all glom to, and that we don't have to, whatever her beliefs are, we know she's a good person, whether you agree with her on everything or not. Yeah. And we don't want to force her into the light on everything and make a stand on every subject. I understand the passion people feel and the frustration they feel, and they don't want to be duped thinking someone's one way when they're another and all that. And but we're kind of making it harder and harder. And it's important for us to have people that we all feel safe with, and there are just fewer and fewer of them now. Yeah.
Well, she did things like not accepting some, like the Medal of Freedom and things like that from people. And I think that very
but without a statement.
Without a statement.
Yep.
Very quietly making a point. I mean, it's kind of the opposite of her sister Stella, who I love Stella's comments. I mean, Stella's like very strident and out there.
She's salty.
She is.
Sister
Stella.
I love,
and I'm glad she is. I think she's terrific.
Yeah.
But I think that you know where Dolly's heart lay.
Yeah. Yeah. But like she said, she loves everybody, and we have to love everybody. So she's saying, don't love everybody. Period. You know, and
find the best.
Work
in everybody.
things out. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, she did have. She would, if anyone tried to push her. I know a journalist who was going to interview her for the first time, and she was being encouraged to ask her some political type stuff. And she was worried about that. And I said, she's not going to want to talk about it.
She's not going to talk about it.
And but she was getting pressure to ask her some political stuff. And I think the first thing she asked, and she was nervous, but, you know, whatever the boss says. And so she said something to the effect of, you know, what do you think about the Roe v. Wade? And Dolly Parton said, we're not going to talk about that. And she said it was very nicely put and everything, but just ice went through her veins. She's like, oh, tell me about your new show then. You know, we're not going to talk about that. No, I'm sorry.
But, I mean, she would answer serious stuff. She would talk about serious stuff, but she wouldn't. I mean, she was so smart in how she answered things and how she considered them that she could tell you something. She could say something and not quite say it in a way that, I mean, was going to offend somebody.
Right.
I mean, I love the fact that she had boundaries.
Yeah.
And as open as she was, I think she was extremely private. Right. I mean, look at her private life. Nobody ever saw Carl Dean.
No.
I mean,
60 years they were married, and he was just like, maybe you caught a glimpse of him when they were on their way to Kroger or something like that.
And I think they had a really, really good love.
Yeah.
I think they love to go out on their RV.
Yeah.
And just go camp in RV parks.
Well, didn't you interview her once when she was like making dinners for him?
Yeah, it was a Sunday afternoon. I had a phone interview with her.
Yeah.
And I actually could tell she was getting a little like, you know, let's get this guy off the phone. Because I was taking a long time.
Something was boiling over.
Yeah, but she told me, you know, I'm cooking dinner for the week.
Yep.
And that's what she did, is she cooked the dinners for the week they were going to eat. And
we all know. I mean, we're Southern, and we all know people who do that. You know, like Sunday is cooking day, and they cook for the whole week, and it just so.
And that's what she was doing. But I was thinking, you know, my gosh, I mean, because she had tons of money then. This was when that was probably the 90s.
Yeah.
That I talked to her then, and I mean, who else with that much money not only cooks their own food, but plans it out and, you know, cooks it for the week.
But the trapping thing, before we forget that, there was another thing that happened. This was when Hillary Clinton and Trump were running against each other. And the New York Times had some time to ask her some questions. And they asked her, what would she do if Hillary Clinton won? And she said, oh, that'd be great. You know, I'd love to have a woman president, and it would be great to have a blah, 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 blah. They didn't ask her about Trump. And they put a story out that said Dolly Parton would, quote, you know, love to have Hillary Clinton. I thought, you know, and I knew Dolly well enough to know that they're leaving something out there, because she wasn't picking a side, I'm sure of it. Yeah. And of course, the Democrats are all like, you know, oh, Hillary Clinton just endorsed Clinton, and of course the Republicans were mad. She just endorsed Clinton, you know. Yeah. And I called up her publicist, got to her publicist, and I said, is there something else? They said, yeah, we want to put a statement out, you know, that they didn't ask her about Trump. And the statement was, you know, I believe in America, and I support anyone who's president, you know, and I would have said the same thing, you know, if you asked me if so-and-so wins, and it's like, well, this is who America has chosen as their president, and this is my country, you know. So she never backed away from saying Hillary Clinton would be great, but she never meant it that way, and it was just kind of misused how they positioned it. And I helped get her, you know, not retraction, because it wasn't a retraction, but just the rest of the story out there.
Yeah. Well, and she made that statement, in my way of thinking, more in relation to having a woman as president, not about her politics.
Yeah. And that's probably, that might have even been how they asked it. Say, what would you do if we had a woman president? Oh, I think it'd be a great woman. And in her retraction statement, she said, something like, I'd run for office myself, but we got enough boobs in the office, you know?
And she was not afraid to make boob jokes.
And not at all.
She said, I've got small feet because things don't grow good in the shade.
Well, the latter, I don't want to get us marked explicit or anything, but the Letterman, when her number one pet peeve about being Dolly Parton, she says, people are always talking about my boobs. They forget that I've got a good A too. Although she used the word, it is just like hilarious.
Well, that's one of the things that I think some people don't recognize about her is she had a good, crude sense of humor.
Yeah.
I mean, I won't tell this joke, but I sent it to my sister-in-law last night. Somebody had a clip of when they were making 9 to 5. And
yes.
Did you see that? When she was telling Jane Fonda.
The Kermit the Frog joke. Oh, my gosh. Yeah. We'll have to share it with you, John, after.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, look up bloopers 9 to 5.
Yeah. But she would make those kind of comments.
Yeah. But back to the...
She was not a prude.
No. Back to the Times thing, I saw another quote with her where she said something about, she was... I don't know if it was some war. I don't know which president she was even talking about. But, she wanted to say, she was praying for the president and everything. Yeah. And then she said, I just thought, oh, no. It's just like, just what that would cause. Like, oh, no, that doesn't mean that's her president. And that's her favorite president. Just like that's the president. Yeah. And we're in trouble. And, but she said, so I just didn't bother, she just, but that's that, putting herself out there. She just walked a fine line and they can't do it anymore. They're not allowed to do it anymore. And if you don't say anything, then all the suspicions about you are confirmed just by your lack of saying anything. If you do say anything, you usually get it twisted. And next thing you know, everybody's mad at you. Yeah. And it's like, why can't, and I understand wanting people to be accountable. I understand people wanting to know where people stand on the issues, and there may be something critically important to you and you're not sure where someone stands. I understand that, but it's important that we have some people who aren't in the fray, you know?
Yeah, I agree. It's hard but like I said before, we always knew where her heart was.
We knew where her heart was. Yeah. How she stands.
Yeah. And when it came to standing up for someone's rights and somebody or being discriminated against, she was there. Right. She made a comment on that.
She hated anyone who punched down for any reason on anybody.
Well, one of the nicest things that I saw, I guess it was this morning, somebody had posted, there's like I don't remember which gay men's choir it was, but they were singing her song Wildflowers.
Oh, I saw a bunch of those.
My gosh. Too. I nearly started crying.
Yeah.
Because it was just so sweet. And, you listen to the lyrics, it's like, damn, this is great.
Yeah. We were talking about people around the world too. So as I grew to accept Dolly Parton and then love Dolly Parton through the 80s and everything, then when I started traveling around the world a lot in the 90s, I did a bunch of it. And the rule of thumb was people wouldn't know where Tennessee was in most countries. They know where Florida is. They know where California is. They know where New York is. But we're in one of those states that they're not really sure where it is or what it stands for. And it used to be you would say, well, that's where Elvis Presley's from. And it's like, I don't identify with Elvis Presley at all. He's from far there.
The other end of the state.
Yeah, you could drive into 8 or 9 other states in the time it would take to drive from here to Memphis, And anyway, first I was at Epcot. This is my first little vignette. I was at Epcot, and there was a guy working there. And the thing about Epcot and Disney World is like every country pavilion has people from those countries. So the German pavilion has Germans, the French pavilion has French. And I was in Morocco, and there was a young guy there.
Where we have some listeners.
Yes, we do have listeners in Morocco and Florida. So there you go. But anyway, it was this really nice guy, and he asked where I was from. I said, Tennessee. And he goes, I don't know Tennessee. And I said, I'm from where Dolly Parton's from. And he goes, Dolly Parton. And he grew up listening to Dolly Parton. Yeah. He learned to speak English listening to Dolly Parton's albums. Yeah. And she inspired him to want to come to America.
Wow.
It's like, well, how did this kid in Morocco get to be this Dolly Parton? Yeah. Another time I was at the Virgin Megastore in Paris. okay. So imagine Paris in the 90s, Virgin Megastore, and this really, really pretty, but just like real edgy French woman was working there, Parisian woman. Yeah. And I asked her about Les Rita Mitsuko, is a French art pop group. Yeah. And she goes, how do you know that? But anyway, so she's talking to me about that and everything. And she wanted to know where I was from. And I said, Tennessee. And she just kind of like, they're waiting for you to say something they know. I said, I'm from where Dolly Parton is. She goes, Dolly Parton, Dolly Parton. And she just like melted in front of me. And she followed me around and talked about how much she loved Dolly Parton. Yeah. This is like this edgy woman on the Champs-Élysées in Paris. Yeah. Just like fangirling over Dolly Parton. And one last story. It's like I found people all around the world. I would just mention her name and they would know who I was talking about. But there was one time I didn't, and I went to, or they didn't at first. And I went to South Africa, and I went from the northeast corner to the southwest corner. A friend of mine lived in Johannesburg, and we went up to this town called Barberton. He had a friend who lived up there, Johans. And Barberton, or maybe Nels Pruitt. Anyway, this little town near the Kruger National Park. So we stayed with him, and he was recently divorced, and his wife and kid had moved out and all that stuff. So he's a little down in that out. But we were looking at cable, and this movie Straight Talk was coming on cable. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's a terrible movie. Dolly Parton's in it, and James Woods, and it's just hokey and all that stuff. It's like, it's okay, though, because it's Dolly. Yeah. So we put it on, and I said, she's from where I'm from. And he just looked at her, and he goes, she looks like that? And I said, yeah. He goes, he was Afrikaans. Right. My friend was English South African. Anyway, and so he had this odd accent. He goes, he said, do other women in Tennessee look like that? I said, some of them. And he just kept going on into where he was coming to Tennessee. He was going to find his own Dolly Parton. And he had never seen her before, but he just laughed at everything she said and just was infatuated and madly in love with her from one of her worst movies.
That's funny.
And that's the kind of power that she had. So
we know the story I've told a whole bunch, and we talked about before we went on the air was when I was interviewing Kinky Friedman one time. He was talking. I talked to him several times, and he was always a lot of fun. But he told me that he ran into Nelson Mandela's assistant somewhere, who had been on Robbins Island with him in prison.
Right.
And
I visited there. Yeah.
And he had told Kinky that Nelson Mandela listened to his music, and of course Kinky was amazed.
Yeah.
But the guy said, "Don't get the big head, though. You weren't his favorite. That was Dolly Parton." But the idea, the thought to me of Nelson Mandela locked up in prison for years.
Yeah.
And listening to Dolly Parton, from the Smoky Mountains.
Yeah.
So far away from South Africa. And here this guy is, and he is comforted in listening to this little girl. This woman who'd been a little girl growing up poor, who had made her way in this world. I was just amazed and touched. Now, Kinky was too.
Yeah.
Kinky loved Dolly. He said good stuff about her. Yeah. But, you think about how far that goes, how deep it is that somebody, here's a guy who changed South Africa. Here's a guy who, brought his people out of the kind of discrimination they were under, out of the apartheid government, changed everything. He was listening to Dolly.
I feel like, in a weird way, not to overstate it or anything, but I feel like Dolly had reached a level of enlightenment that the rest of us haven't reached.
Yeah, she probably did.
She was sitting next to me at that last interview in a hot pink jumpsuit. And dolled up, makeup and everything.
Tiny, too. She's tiny.
She's so tiny. I told this story once before. This is one of our first episodes when I told it, so hardly anyone heard it. So I'll tell it again. But there's a picture of me, all big and bulky and everything, next to her in her tiny white, in her tiny pink pantsuit. But when we were leaving after the interview and everything, they said, would you all like to be in a picture with Dolly? And it's like, how nice of them to say that. Because, of course, you're like, I don't want to ask for a picture. They know everybody wants to be in a picture with her, so they just throw it out there. And I thought the other two on the team would be in a picture with her. And I'm like, come on, Chuck, you too. Yeah. And she's standing there at the end. Dolly's waving me over. So I went over there. And even though I'd been talking with her and sitting next to her, and we'd been there half an hour or whatever, I started feeling woozy, like I was going to pass out or something. And I got over there, and she, she put her hand on my back and she patted it and everything. I just muttered to her, I said, I think I'm about to pass out. So she just started rubbing my back and everything while they were taking the pictures. And the whole time they were taking pictures, Dolly Parton was rubbing my back so I wouldn't pass out. And I think that probably happened to her all the time.
It probably did.
Because you would read like these big, huge celebrities would say, who felt like they would say anything to anybody, and they get all cowed and they don't even know how to talk to her and all. And you look in those eyes, and the way she looks at you, like you say, it's like she just automatically, her I don't know, goes out. She makes this connection to you, and it's like she knows who you are when you don't even know, when she doesn't even know you, and she knows how you feel, and she's kind of reached this level. I think she had all this confidence that you wouldn't expect, and that's the thing about her, is she didn't care what people thought, and she knew she was on the right path, and she always seemed to be composed, and like I say, it's like if this were a Buddhist world or whatever, she was like at that nirvana state, or Hindu, where she's about ready to jump off the wheel of light because she's been through it. Yeah. She had just reached this level of, like I say, enlightenment that doesn't make the rest of us worse than her or anything, but it's just like you want to learn from her. You want, I think if she were a cult leader, she would be the most dangerous person. if she were a negative cult leader, it would be terrible. If she were positive, but she had that power because it was just this. I mean, you would go to a press meet and greet or whatever where she would be talking, and you would see all these reporters going in, news reporters, some cameramen, everything coming out of the meeting when she was meeting people. When I was there in 2022, she was meeting people. She had a tour bus that was on the resort property, and they had converted the tour bus in kind of like an interview room. And you would see these reporters coming out, all of them crying, sobbing. But they kept saying something, kept saying, she's everything I wanted her to be. She's everything I thought she was. And that's what I was seeing on social media, is people saying she was everything I hoped that she really was. And she really was.
And she was. I got a funny story. Okay. My friend Steve Wildsmith, who used to write for the Maryville Daily Times, I don't think he only interviewed the one time, but he went to Dollywood, and he was standing there, and he said, she looked at him and said, "Oh, it's so good to see you again." And she went over and hugged him, and then he said, she hugged him real good, and then she looked at him and said, "You're not who I thought you were."
I'm glad to see you.
And she was like, and he said, she kind of went on. He said she thought it was Terry Moore.
Yeah, I started to say they do look kind of alike.
A little bit alike. Yeah. But anyway, he said, "I didn't care. I got a hug from Dolly Parton." Yeah. And then I just heard this, my friend Jason Knight related this morning, and he was too young to remember. He says, his mother's always said it happened. He has no memory of it. But when he was 3, they were in a restaurant in Nashville, his mom and him, and I think it was an aunt. And he got away from them someplace, and they went looking around to find him in the restaurant, and he was sitting with Dolly Parton, Linda Ronstadt, and Emmylou Harris.
Oh, they were doing their trio.
They were having breakfast, and this was 10 years before Trio, but it took them 10 years to finally,
get it together and
record. To be able to do it because of all the contracts and stuff. And his mom went over and apologized, and I'm so sorry. And said, no, just let him eat with us, okay? We really enjoyed it. And he apparently ate breakfast at 3 years old.
Wow.
The 3 of them.
Wow.
And can you imagine?
No.
And but he can't remember it. He was so young, he can't remember it.
Peak experience in your life, and you were 3 and don't remember it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I love that story. And I'd never heard it. But none of us, he told it in kind of a group chat we had. And none of us had ever heard it before.
Yeah, yeah.
But, so, that's what they were like. The whole, all 3 of them. Right. Nice people.
Yeah, I never talked to Emmylou Harris, but I talked to Linda Ronstadt.
I didn't talk to Linda. I talked to Emmylou.
She was hilarious, yeah.
Yeah, well, Emmylou's nice.
I didn't expect her to be funny, but she was, I know.
I would have expected her to kind of be funny, too.
She was talking about, I was talking about her new album. It was when she did the Songs of Her Father, the Spanish language songs. Yeah, it was a good album. And she said something about malls or something, about she hated malls and blah blah. I said, well, some of them have record stores that sell your album. She goes, "Oh, I love those malls." It's like I didn't expect her to just pivot like that, but she just ran with it. It's like, "Oh yeah, I love the malls. I love the malls with the record stores."
Favorite kind of mall.
Yeah. Well, it was funny. We're just in the humor thing. Somebody posted a montage of Dolly quips. that I reposted this morning on Facebook. And it was just, it made me, after all this, I mean, we've been feeling so bad and so sad about this, but gosh, it just felt so good to hear her making jokes and making people laugh. And I mean, I laughed 3 or 4 times because she was so quick-witted.
Yeah. She could have been a comedian, too.
Oh,
of all the things she could have done, she could have been a comedian so easily.
But it's, you know, I mean, there's so many aspects to it and things that you don't want to forget and, you know, things you want to keep.
Yeah.
Well, my hope is that in these times where everybody is so divided and the news is so negative, that her passing and everybody revisiting their experiences of her will open up a wellspring of kindness and goodness that can get us out of these dark times.
Yeah, I hope so too. I mean,
I've heard other people speaking along that line.
Yeah, I saw a couple of social media. I saw one guy did this video. He goes, if God had to sacrifice anybody to bring this world together, you know, as much as he didn't want her to be dead or anything, like, please let this be something good for us.
Galvanizing.
Yeah, because we all, you know, it feels like we're really in the balance now.
Yeah.
And this is like a wake-up lesson to us. It's like, you know, there was a time when, you know, I've tried, like I had to get off social media a lot, especially Facebook, although I was still there professionally for how we heard it. But just so much just unbelievable negativity spewed by people who don't even know each other and people with saying that dumb things and stuff. What I tried to do when I would see that is I would try to click on the profile if someone said something obscene or whatever, and then I would see, oh, they've got a black lab too, you know, or oh, they like the beach, or oh, you know, and try to find some connection there, because right now we're just looking for reasons to pull ourselves apart from each other, and that's the last thing.
That's the example she set.
Yeah, that's the example she set, and I hope
be the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah,
she
lived. It would be so nice.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll always have disagreements. We're always going to have political issues that divide us, but we don't have to just become, you know, 2 separate worlds or 3 separate worlds.
And who are we to judge?
Yeah, exactly. We're not here to judge anybody. We're not, you know.
But I mean, that's why, like, I hope everybody that loved Dolly Parton gets together and sits around and talks about her and talks about her life.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like I said, when, you know, at the beginning, it's like it's important. When somebody dies, you need to get together and you need to talk about them. You need to remember them and talk about what was special about them and what they meant to you. I mean, you know, all 3 of us looking around each other, she meant something to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I mean,
potentially billions of others.
Yeah, and I mean, she wasn't family. She wasn't somebody you knew as a friend personally.
But you felt like you did.
Yeah.
You felt like she was.
And she was somebody that you could look up to. And there's so few people right now that you think, you know, I can really look up to them and I'm not going to pick them apart.
Right.
It's...
Well, and just, I think it's the authenticity. A lot of people can play the game and pretend to be, you know, wonderful and nice all the time. But you just hear over and over and over again, and with our personal experience, that, oh wow, this is really who she was. And it's extraordinary.
But she did. I mean, but another thing is she stuck up for herself.
She did,
and I think that's important too.
Yeah,
you know, I mean,
she never tore anyone else down.
No,
you know, she stuck up for herself, but she didn't take anyone else down to stick up for herself.
Yeah, and
that's how you do it.
And that's, I mean, you read it all the time. You're not stronger by knocking somebody else down.
Nope.
You're
sure
stronger by helping them get up.
Yeah. And it's just such a wonderful example of humanity, you know. And we've lost her, but I hope something good comes out of it.
Yeah.
She lives on.
She will live on in her movies and her songs, and, you know, and people telling stories about her.
And the example that she set.
Yeah. Well,
the example that she set.
Before we leave, I think we should all say, you know, one thing that maybe, or one song or one movie that maybe people hadn't seen or heard that people ought to listen to. And I'll start because I want and this is a song she didn't write, but listen to her cover of Dark as a Dungeon by Merle Travis. And all those songs that, you know, like Coat of Many Colors and things everybody knows, I mean, those are just incredible. But you might not know her cover of that song, and it's a killer.
Okay. I'm going to say listen to Rockstar, the album she put out in 2023, after she said, I haven't done anything to, deserve being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. She did an album of cover songs. It's not groundbreaking and everything, but the people she collaborated with, she did Every Breath You Take with Sting. Mm-hmm. She did Magic Man with Ann Wilson of Heart. She did Can't Get No Satisfaction with Pink and Brandy Carlisle. Yeah. Of course, that was a Rolling Stones song. Let It Be with Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr. Mm-hmm. She did Free Bird with Ronnie Van Zant, and she did Stairway to Heaven with Lizzo. And it's all so weird, and it's just hearing these people, and all of these people have talked about her in tribute to her, of how it's this surreal, extraordinary experience for them to be in a studio with Dolly. So I would say that, and if you got to see a movie, then see 9 to 5, of course, if you haven't seen 9, or watch it again. It still holds up. Women are still going through some of these same old battles. Yeah.
Well, just a little bit of an aside, her cover of Peace Train, the Cat Stevens song, which is not on that album, it's on an earlier album, I think.
No, it wasn't on that. I don't think so.
Yeah, it's on an earlier
Cat Stevens had a great tribute to
her.
Yeah,
I saw that one.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah,
it was really sweet. But her version of Peace Train is just,
She did Imagine too, which I thought was a great cover of. I mean, it's like, even if you don't like country music or you don't necessarily like her voice, you just let it play.
Yeah. John.
I can't claim that I know lots of deep catalog stuff, but I do feel it's just so remarkable, the literary voice that she found for Jolene.
Yeah.
That's unusual.
Yeah, it was. I've not seen that perspective. Just like, you have all the power, Jolene. You can take my man away.
But please don't.
Please don't. Yeah. And I saw there was a great tribute to her from Beyonce too. Really? Just talking about how honored she was and blah blah blah, and they've recycled things that Whitney Houston. Just all these stars on her level. Just and like I was hearing Cher doing a live interview and. She was just, just like she couldn't say enough about her. And that's Cher. Cher will put anybody down if she feels like it.
Well, I reposted,
just like you can't.
Billy Bragg's comment on her. He'd never met her, never played with her or anything. Yeah. But here's a guy who's a British protest singer. He's great. But man, he felt her too. He knew how authentic she was, and
it's hard to ignore.
Yeah.
I'm sure you feel this way too. But it's like, I saw a lot of like really big stars who didn't get to meet her, and they were doing their tributes. I thought, man, I got to sit in her bus, and she was in the hot pink jumpsuit. It's like, how fortunate were we to know her on even that level, or to even be from her hometown.
And, well, having that hour with her is like the most special probably time I had as an interviewer ever. That and hanging with Elvis Costello, but with Dolly, it was just like I was asking about songwriting from one of the greatest songwriters of all time.
Yeah.
And she
not
was
just someone who had one hit or who collaborated with other people, so you didn't even, it was her songs.
And she
did all those other things too.
Yeah.
She had hits. She covered other people. She collaborated with all kinds of people.
Yeah. But she was just so gracious and then she was like, I asked her some of her favorites, and she talked about I love Merle Haggard too. She talked about Willie and Merle, and we just really, connected over how much we both loved Merle Haggard's songs. Yeah. And one thing that she said that really stuck with me, it says, it's like he doesn't even write them. It's just like they're just there.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that's the way, like Jolene.
Yeah.
Jolene could have been written 300 years ago or 300 years in the future, and, you're still going to feel it.
That little story I told a couple of years ago on here, I talked about how my career in music journalism, it started with Joan Jett. She was my first big interview, and it ended with Dolly Parton in that 2022, and how that was such a great bookends for strong women and everything. And oddly enough, the first thing I saw on my phone after I saw that she was dead, it was Joan Jett talking about what a miraculous woman Dolly Parton was, and she was, and it just and everyone agrees. It just like struck me as like, oh wow, my first interview talking about my last,
Yeah.
Well, we just all got to be grateful that we got to live in a world that she was alive in.
Yeah. We were lucky. Yeah. Could have been born any time.
Yeah.
Sure beats the Dark Ages.
But yeah.
But we can carry her spirit forward with us, and she'll always live on. And, I don't know how to say anything that's not been said a million times before. and anything that doesn't sound like a cliche or melodramatic, but I don't know how to do it any other way. I don't know how to talk about her in any way that doesn't sound gushy.
Well, it's like the bumper sticker. What would Dolly do?
What would Dolly do? Yeah.
And I think you can apply that to your life, and your life will be better.
Yeah. Be good, y'all. We'll be back next time.
You've been listening to How We Heard It with Chuck Campbell and Wayne Bledsoe, a podcast about music, movies, art, culture, whatever it is that's on their mind. How We Heard It was recorded at the Arbor Studio in Knoxville, Tennessee by me, John Baker. How We Heard It is a Cozy Planet production. If listening to this podcast has given you a burning sensation, then we recommend you sit in a hot tub until your symptoms fade away. If you'd like to reach out to Chuck or Wayne or even me, you can send an email to howweheardit@gmail.com. So thank you for listening, and come on back and we'll have another episode for you next week.